So Moshe Rabbeinu, number one, page 298. He goes out after being raised. The story, he's saved, he's rescued. Tzipporah, what do you call it? Yocheved ends up raising him. She gets paid. That was the last thing we had talked about, how his mother got paid to nurse him. Right, so I always say a good job in life is something that you do and you feel you're getting much more money than you deserve. That's a good job. That's the definition of good employment. So now, in Pasuk page 298, Moshe Rabbeinu goes out. Vahi bayamim hahem. It was in the top of the page on page 298. Vayigdal Moshe. Moshe has gotten older. He's been raised in Pharaoh's palace. Vayetze el echav. He goes out to his brothers. Vayar b'sivlosam. He sees their suffering. Vayar ish mitzri make ish ivri me'achav. He sees an Egyptian is hitting a Jew. So first of all, it just says Moshe Rabbeinu becomes bigger, which means he grew older. That's the plain meaning. Moshe Rabbeinu grew older. But the commentaries point out that is the sign of his bigness. I mean, he became a big person. You know how you become a big person? You become a big person by going out and see how your brothers are suffering. That's how you become a big person. That's the sign of being a big person. Vayigdal Moshe became big. You know how? Vayetze elecha v'yar b'sivlosam. To go out and see your brothers are suffering, and instead you could be living in the palace. Moshe Rabbeinu was a prince living in the palace, and instead of staying in the palace, Moshe Rabbeinu goes out to see how his brothers are suffering. That's a sign. That's a sign that you're a big person. Sometimes in life, a person has a what do you call it? It's going well for you. Everybody else. You cluck your tongue, say, oh, that's rough luck. And then you go on with life. Moshe Rabbeinu shows that you want to be a big person. A big person goes out to see how can I help everybody else who's suffering. And the first thing he sees is there's an Egyptian who's hitting a Jew. So the Medrash says that this Egyptian was hitting a Jew because the Egyptians this was the Egyptian taskmaster. And the Egyptians used to go in and wake up the Jews to come out for work early in the morning, in the crack of dawn. They would go out there while it was still dark in the house. They went into the house, he woke up the Jew, sent him out to go do his work, and then the Egyptian went back to the house. He noticed the guy's wife, and he basically violated her. She didn't know, she thought it was her husband. He didn't say anything, just, went into the house and he violated her. So when he got out to the work, to the work area, the Jew came home and he sensed what had happened. Now the Egyptian knew that the guy knew. So the Egyptian started whipping him. So they had insult to injury. First he violated his wife, and now he's out there, he's whipping the guy. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes out there, and we see an act of vigilantism. This teaches us about Torah vigilantism. Vayifen kovacho, he looks around. Vayar ki ein ish, he sees there's nobody there. Vayaches ha-mitzri vayitbeneo b'chol, he smites the Mitzri, and he buries him in sand. He smites the Mitzri, and he buries him in sand. Now, you'll notice over here that the Torah is pointing out, first of all, what's a leader? Take responsibility. The guy's whipping a Jew. He's beating the Jew. Obviously, Moshe Rabbeinu felt there must be a danger to life if he keeps beating here. The Jews are malnourished, and he's working. And Moshe Rabbeinu sees he's beating the Jew. So Moshe Rabbeinu walks over to him, and Moshe Rabbeinu clobbers him, and he kills him. But you'll notice that the Torah says before that, Vayifen kovacho, he looks in all directions. Now the plain meaning is he looks around. If you're ever going to commit a crime, you look around to make sure nobody's watching you. You're going to do something wrong in Egypt. Moshe can't go killing Egyptians. Moshe looks around. Nobody's around, sees him. Nowadays there are cameras everywhere, so nowadays you can't get away with anything. But in the old days, used to be, look around, nobody's there. So Moshe Rabbeinu kills him. But Rashi says Vayifen kovacho means that Moshe Rabbeinu had a prophetic vision here. And he looked to see if there are going to be any worthy descendants coming from this Egyptian. Anybody in the future, any worthy descendants coming from this Egyptian. He sees there's nobody coming, nobody worthwhile, no Jewish converts later in history, so Moshe Rabbeinu kills him. All of which begs, it's very, very tricky, very difficult to understand what's going on here. But the commentaries point out that there's an act of vigilantism, which is that Vayifen kovacho. Vayifen kovacho doesn't just mean physically looking around. Vayifen kovacho means sometimes in life you have to take action, sometimes even drastic action. But you have to look at the consequences first before you take drastic action. Vayifen kovacho. That means on the one hand, you have to have a certain amount of alacrity. You have to take action. But action requires a certain amount of forethought. Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be a leader. Vayifen kovacho. Take a look at the consequences of your actions. Where's this going to lead to? So Moshe Rabbeinu looks around, sees nobody's watching him, and he kills the Egyptian. Then he goes out the second day. He goes out the second day. Two Jews are quarreling. He says, Rasha, why are you hitting your friend? So Rashi says he didn't even hit him yet. The minute you pick up a fist against a Jew, you're called a Rasha. What about the other guy? He's a Rasha like you. Takes two to tango. So I heard somebody said during the snow, people throw snowballs. So I heard a big Rosh Yeshiva gave a shvuz at the yeshiva. The snow was coming down. The boys were getting all cranked up to throw snowballs. He says, you see the part that says you throw a snowball at somebody. Even if you miss, you're a Rasha. If you hit them, it's even worse. You strike a Jew, you're a Rasha. You pick up your hand, not even to hit him. You pick up your hand, the minute you pick up your fist, you're a Rasha. Okay, sometimes the guy needs to be hit. But a guy who doesn't need to be hit, he's not a White Sox fan. If he's a White Sox fan, you can hit him. But if he's not a White Sox fan, so you pick up your fist. You're already a Rasha before you even hit him. Where's that? What does that say? Northwestern. You're not from Chicago, are you?
Yes, sir.
Are you a White Sox fan?
Cubs fan.
There you go. Okay, we'll catch us a White Sox fan right after Shear. What's your name?
Ben.
Ben, I like him already. Yeah, okay, we'll catch us a White Sox fan.
Are you from Chicago?
I am from Chicago. You are from Chicago?
Yes.
What's your name?
Michael?
You a White Sox fan?
Nope.
Okay, Cub fan?
Nope.
Neither am I. Yeah, sports is inane. But what do you call it? If he'll join us, so if he'll do a mitzvah, we'll catch a White Sox fan. But other than that, to pick up your fist and hit somebody, that you're not allowed to do. So Moshe Rabbeinu sees the guy and they're fighting. Now, who are these two guys? What does it say? Who are these two guys? Dathan and Abiram. If you saw the movie The Ten Commandments, I think it's Edgar G. Robinson plays Dathan. I don't know why he lisped, but he plays Dathan. Right? So Dathan and Abiram are these two guys who are the thorn in the side for Moshe Rabbeinu the entire time until they die. Who knows when they die? When did Dathan and Abiram die? With Korach. They get swallowed up in the earth when the earth opens up and swallows up Korach. So you had Dathan and Abiram for dessert. Korach was the main course and Dathan and Abiram were the dessert. So Dathan and Abiram are a thorn in Moshe's side. Now, ironically, they are a blessing in disguise. They're a blessing in disguise. You know why? Why are Dathan and Abiram a blessing in disguise for Moshe Rabbeinu? Every leader needs a Dathan and an Abiram. You know why? Because when there's somebody gunning for you, somebody's gunning for you. If Moshe Rabbeinu steps out of line, they'll be the first one to make noise about it. What's that?
Makes you more righteous.
That's right. If they're not making noise, what does that mean? That means you're good. Because if I wasn't good, they'd be making noise already. So it must be that he's good. So sometimes, ironically, the guys who are gunning for you, in every shul you have that. You have in every shul, there's somebody who loves the rabbi. Every shul has somebody who loves the rabbi, somebody can't stand the rabbi. There's always some guy who says, the rabbi, I don't like his talks, and he's probably taking money from the shul. What does the rabbi do all day anyway? Everybody's always asking, what do the rabbis do? What do you do all day? Right? You watch TV. The rabbi, he says, what does the rabbi do all day? The guy's sitting in a bar talking to his friend. What does the rabbi do? What are you doing? What are you worried about the rabbi for? Right? Wait, you want the rabbi to walk into the bar with you? That'll be okay. Right? So the rabbi, what does the rabbi do all day? There's always somebody who's gunning for the rabbi. If the guy's quiet, that means the rabbi's doing a good job. He's the ultimate proof that the people who love the rabbi, well, that doesn't prove anything. But that the guy who doesn't love the rabbi, he's the one who's quiet. That's what Dathan and Abiram are. So now Moshe Rabbeinu gets it from the Vayomer Misamcha Sarva Shofet Aleinu. Who made you the leader? Halargeni Atomer Kasharagdas Mitzri. You're going to kill me like you killed that Egyptian? Vayira Moshe Vayomer Acheino Dover. Moshe says, word got out. And it got out to people who shouldn't have gotten out to. So Moshe Rabbeinu is panicked because word has gotten back. And Moshe Rabbeinu says, V'chein no da'adover, word is out. And what do? Vayishma Paro esador. Paro hears about it. How did Paro hear about it? They obviously went and snitched. Vayivakesh laragas Moshe wanted to kill Moshe. Vayivrach Moshe mipnei Paro. Moshe runs away. Vayeshev be'eretz Midian. Vayeshev al Abir. Moshe runs away from Paro and he goes off to the land of Midian. Now, you know the Medrash, before we go on, do you know the famous Medrash that Moshe Rabbeinu, when he was 2 years old, 1 year old, 2 years old, however, he was a little baby, and Basi Bas Paro brought him into the palace, and Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting there on Paro's lap. Now you see the irony over here. Here's Paro, who keeps getting reports on how's this policy of killing the children going, where they're trying to make sure the Jewish leader isn't born. Now think of the irony. He's got his adopted grandson on his lap, who's eventually going to be the Jewish leader, and a guy's come in and says, Excellency, we've killed babies here, thrown them into the Nile over here, and Paro's just, he's bouncing around his grandson and saying, okay, we got to stop that leader from being born. We can't have that Jewish leader being born. And he's got him on his lap. Paro, which just shows you that in life you can sometimes try as hard as you want. You can try as hard as you want in life. Yet if HaKadosh Baruch Hu, if God decides that it's going to happen, and you may be raising him on your very own lap, right? And so here he is, his adopted grandson, who's going to be the Jewish leader, is exactly what, he's right there in your hands. And Paro is giving orders all over the country, and he's right there in your hands. That's exactly what you're nervous about. So the Medrash says like this. Moshe Rabbeinu sitting on Paro's head, and he reached up for the crown. Now he had two advisors. One of his advisors was a man named Bilam, who we see later in the Torah. Bilam is the arch enemy of the Jewish people. He had another advisor named Yisro. Who does Yisro become eventually? Who is Yisro? Becomes Yosef Shravah. Okay? So now we'll see something very interesting. Moshe is about 2 years old. And then Moshe Rabbeinu reaches for the crown. So Bilam looks at Paro and says, that's a smart kid, you ought to execute him now. That he knows what he's doing, that means he's going to usurp your throne. He's going for your crown. And Yisro says, no, he's a mindless little child. Let's give him the test. So they brought out, remember the famous test? They bring out the coals and the diamonds. And they bring it out and see which one Moshe Rabbeinu reaches for. And Moshe Rabbeinu reaches for the coals. He actually reached for the diamonds, but the Malach moved his hand over. Moshe Rabbeinu, hey, diamond. Yeah. He picks up a coal, and it burnt. And so he put his finger to his mouth. That burnt his lips. That's how he became speech. He had a speech impediment. Moshe Rabbeinu had a speech impediment. That speech impediment is also not an accident. It's also not an accident. The Jewish leader kind of talks like this, right? Isn't it interesting? He has a speech impediment. He's the great redeemer. They don't show that in the movies. In the movies, they just show Charlton Heston talking normal. They don't show that much. He talked like he had a speech impediment. Can't understand what's wrong. Right? That was the leader. That's the greatest man in history. There's a reason for that. You know why? Because God doesn't want that the Jewish leader are going to believe, the Jewish people believe somebody because he's an articulate speaker. He could hoodwink people. He's a great politician. He's a great speaker. And because he could talk, so people jump on the bandwagon. Here's a guy who could barely get a word out of his mouth, and they believe him because there's substance. They don't believe him simply because he's putting on a show. So if a person is a great, so Moshe Rabbeinu burns his lips, and then Moshe Rabbeinu grows up, and here he is with a speech impediment. Now, here, they snitched him to Paro. Paro wants to kill him. And Moshe Rabbeinu flees and he goes off to the land of Midian. Where does he go? He goes to the well. Why does he go to the well? Moshe Rabbeinu goes, what's that?
That's how everyone found Yitzchak and everybody found their wife.
They found their wife at the well. Right? They went fishing and found it at the well. Right? That's where you go fishing. Okay? Now, why would Moshe, what's the connection? Why is Moshe Rabbeinu going to the well now? I mean, okay, he tried to kill me, I better get married. Now it won't be so bad. Now marriage won't be as bad because, I know what it's like to have somebody almost chop your head off, So what's one thing got to do with the other? What's the connection? Why would Moshe Rabbeinu, the Medrash says that they actually brought the sword in. They brought Moshe Rabbeinu in. They captured him, and the executioner took the chopping sword, and he chopped Moshe Rabbeinu's neck, but his neck turned to marble. The sword bounced off and killed the executioner. Hate when that happens. The executioner, he hits Moshe Rabbeinu, like a boink, and it killed the executioner. And so Moshe Rabbeinu runs away. Okay, so why do you run away? Let's get married. Now I'm safe. If he couldn't kill me, she can't either. I'm not so sure. The lady Astor once said to Winston Churchill, Winston Churchill, there was a woman named Lady Astor. Him and Winston Churchill, they were at swords' points. So she once said to Winston Churchill, my dear sir, if I was married to you, I'd poison your tea. He said, Madame, if I was married to you, I'd drink it. So if what do you call it? So Moshe, what's it got to do with getting married? The answer is that Moshe Rabbeinu realizes I could have died just now. If I would have died now, there would have been nothing left. I better get married to have continuity because I see that I was one step away from death, so it's time to get married. Okay, so he runs to the well. Now, what happens? Ula Kohen Midian Sheva Banos, the high priest of Midian, the leader of Midian, has 7 daughters. Vatavona, Vatidlena, Vatamalena is Horhotim. I'm on page 298, 8 lines from the bottom. Vatavona, they come along, Vatidlena, Vatamalena is Horhotim. They fill the troughs, Lahashkos Sonavim, to water their father's sheep. He's got no sons. His daughters are the shepherdesses. Vayavoa Roim, Vayagorshim. The other shepherds come along, they chase them away. Vayaka Moshe Vayoshian, Moshe saves them. Vayashk est sonam. So Moshe continues, he picks up right where he left off in Egypt. Makes no difference. That's who the man is. You go off to another country. I mean, you're outnumbered by the shepherds are picking on the girls over there. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes, and Moshe Rabbeinu chases them away. So what do the girls do? Vatovona el re'u el avien, vayomer madua mehartem bo'ayom. They come to rule their father. They say, why'd you come home so fast? That was quick. And Moshe Rabbeinu not only chased away the shepherds, he then watered the sheep. Vatomarna ish mitzri hitzilonu miyad haroim v'gam dololonu v'yashkezon. They say, as an Egyptian, some Egyptian guy saved us, and he watered our sheep. Now you're the father of 7 daughters. What do you think you're looking for? You have 7 daughters. There's only one thing on your mind. That's what you're looking for. Vayomer el benosa ve'ayo, where is he? Lama ze'azavten esish kirena lo v'yochlan. Call him in, he'll have some bread. Rashi says bread's a euphemism for the daughters. Maybe I'll marry one of you. There's 7 daughters. You got a guy who can beat people up, and he's kind. He's got everything. He's strong. He's kind. What? You left him out there. All right, 7 daughters. Where is he? Moshe comes in and he marries Zipporah, his daughter. Okay, that's where the story takes us so far. Now, you want to hear something interesting in life? You ever hear? We mentioned this once before. You know how much time has elapsed since Moshe was born to this? How old is Moshe at this point? 80. He's about 80 years old. He's about to get the message from God to go to Egypt and save the Jewish people. How? He could be had a nice beard. We don't know how his beard grew. Different beard people have different sized beard. In all the children's books, they always make a nice beard. I don't know. Maybe it was a short beard. We don't know. According to the movie, I don't know if he had a beard at all. Did he? Did Charlton Heston have a beard in the movie? Yeah, probably. Yeah. He had one. Okay. We don't know what Moshe Rabbeinu's beard looked like, right? Okay. But Moshe Rabbeinu saves the girls and marries Zipporah. He's 80 years old.
How old was he when he went to the well from Egypt?
We don't. There are different opinions according to the Midrashim. According to the storyline, it happened right away. Within a couple of years, Moshe Rabbeinu is already getting on. There's a time lapse over here. He wasn't very old. According to one Midrash, he was 12 years old when he went out and killed the Egyptian. So there's some sort of time gap over here. We don't know where was Moshe all along between them. There are different opinions in the Midrashim. But the point is like this. In life, you never lose out. You're never going to lose out in life. If you do something good, it's going to come back and get you. You're going to be paid back by it. One way or another, an investment will come back. Who saved Moshe Rabbeinu's life? How would you like to be Moshe Rabbeinu's father-in-law? Your son-in-law is the greatest. How would you like to be your son-in-law just to be the mayor, become a United States senator? First Jewish from United States senator, second one, whatever it is. Wouldn't you? You'd be proud, right? Do you think in-laws, American Jews would love to have my son-in-law the senator, my son-in-law the doctor, my son-in-law the lawyer, my son-in-law the senator. That's even better, right? Would you like it? How about my son-in-law the president, right? My son-in-law the president. That'd be something. The leader of the Jew, the greatest man in history, and you get to be the father-in-law? Why did Moshe Rabbeinu stay alive? Whose idea was it to keep him, to give him the test? When he was choosing, whose idea was it to say, no, let the kid choose between the diamond, the coals, and the, what do you call it? That was Yisro. Oh, Yisro is the one who gave him the idea to stay alive, to keep him alive, to give him the test. 70 years later, who gets him as a son-in-law? The same Yisro. Same Yisro gets him as a son-in-law. Nothing is wasted in life. There's a pasuk we mentioned last week. Shalach lach mecha pnei hamayim. There's a pasuk in Ecclesiastes in Koheles. Cast your bread out in the water. Ki berov yamim timtzen. Eventually, you're going to find it. Eventually, something's going to come back. Something's going to come back, and you're going to find it. There was a story. There was a Jewish family in Germany, and there was what do you call it? The Jewish family in Germany. And when the things got tight, they decided time to go to America. And they didn't have anybody to sign an affidavit for them. And so they were looking through, they didn't know what to do, and that things were getting desperate. And one day they were looking through some cards or some old cards, and from about 15 years earlier, there had been an American soldier stationed in Germany who had been a guest at their home. And he had since left. He had come to their house, and he'd been their house for Shabbosim and so on and so forth. And he had since left, and he emigrated back to America. And he was living somewhere in Minnesota. And they found his address. They found a card. They'd written him a thank you note or something. So out of sheer desperation, they just sent him a what do you call it? They sent him a message that they need affidavits. Can you help them out? He wrote affidavits for the whole. Took on affidavits for the whole family. Brought the whole family over. The whole family survived. I know the next generation from this family. You do an act of kindness, and it's going to come back one way or another. Come back, and often it comes back and pays in major dividends. There was a woman who what do you call it? A woman went shopping, and she had like a 2-year-old daughter, and the 2-year-old daughter, she took her into the house and went back out to the car to get the groceries. She put the 2-year-old down, went back out to the car, and by the time she got back to the house, the front door had slammed shut and locked. Now, a child behind a locked door is considered a life-threatening situation. On Shabbos, if a child is locked in a room, you're allowed to break the door down on Shabbos to help the child. Because a child locked behind the door, number one, is in a situation of fear. They're all by themselves, they're locked and they're trapped. Here you have a 2-year-old daughter who's trapped behind the front door, number one. Number two, who knows what kind of shenanigans they could get into. So it's a serious situation. The mother's in a panic. She can't get the front door open. The child's there. There's nobody around. She doesn't have a cell phone. Believe it or not, there was once a time in the world where there were no cell phones. And she doesn't know what to do. Just then the mailman comes. He's got a special delivery. He's got gives her an envelope. And she'd say to the mailman, listen, can you help me out? I got to open the front door. He says, well, I haven't got time. He just gives her the envelope. He walks away. And she's just holding this envelope. She puts it on her arm, and she's trying to deal with the door. But then all of a sudden, she hears a metal clanging sound, and a key falls out of the envelope, and she hits a front door key to her house. And she picks up the key, and the front door key from the envelope, and she opens it up, and she opens up the envelope to read the envelope, to read what it says. There's a little note there. It says, "Hi, I was your guest at your house 6 weeks ago. I came with a couple of guys for Shabbos. We had a beautiful Shabbos at your house, and I accidentally took the front door key with me. I had to decide to send it back to you." And there it was. She opens up the door. So in life, nothing is, you won't necessarily see the payoff and know that it's a payoff for certain things, but nothing, it's all on file over there. And so Yisro gets Moshe Rabbeinu as a son-in-law. Okay, now let's go on. Moshe Rabbeinu goes out to the fields, and now we're going to see the burning bush. I imagine that's the name of a club somewhere. Where there must be some club named the Burning Bush. You got to have a whole menu of things you could get, all which grow from the ground. So page 300, and we're a pasuk aleph. It's about 7 lines from the top. Okay, now let's take a look what happens with this burning bush. A very, very interesting thing. A couple of very important life lessons. Moshe was grazing the sheep for his father-in-law. He comes to the mountain of God. An angel of God appears to him from this bush. How does the article translate the sneh?
Thorn bush, no?
Does he call it? What do he call it? Thorn bush? Or he just transliterates it. From amid the bush. He just calls it the bush. Vayar v'hinei asneh bor ba'esh. He saw the bush was burning. Ve'asneh einenu ukol. The bush is burning, but the sneh is not consumed, which at one level is a symbol of the Jewish people. And no matter what kind of fires are around them, the Jewish people are not consumed. They're suffering in Egypt, yet the Jewish people will endure. The Jewish people are going to persevere. Now, Vayomer Moshe, Asurana veres amara goroza. Let me see what's happening over there. Madua lo yivar asneh. This is very strange. It's burning, but it's not going out. Now pay attention. The next pasuk is the one we want to get to. 2 more psukim. Then we'll explain what's going on here. Vayer Hashem kisar l'roz. Hashem sees that Moshe Rabbeinu is trying to get a good look. Vayikra elav Elokim mitoch hasneh. Vayomer Moshe, Moshe. Vayomer hineni. He calls him out, Moshe, twice. Says, here I am. Vayomer al tikrav halom. Do not come close. Shal ne'alecha me'al raglecha. Take your shoes off your feet. Ki hamokom asher ata omed olevad maskodesh. You're standing on holy soil. Okay? Let's try to understand what's going on here. What does it mean, first of all? Everybody knows that anytime you want to go into a respectful situation, even Muslims, they go into their mosque, they take off their shoes, right? Well, they take off their shoes. When you go up to the Aron Kodesh, the Kohanim take off their shoes. You walk into the Beis HaMikdash, people were barefoot. You know the Kohanim served barefoot in the Beis HaMikdash? The Kohanim walked around barefoot in the base of Mikdash. So the only thing there to keep to warm their foot was maybe if there was a little blood on the floor. But otherwise, you're on a cold marble floor in Jerusalem in January. Right? Imagine walking around barefoot today, right? And the Kohanim had to walk around. They even had a room. To warm up in the base of Mikdash where the elderly Kohanim could go into the room. They burned wood. You could go in there and put up your feet. Very Jewish thing, And you go in there and you warm like your Zaidi used to do. You warm your feet against the fire. They had a lishkas base on Moked in the base of Mikdash, a warm room. What's the idea of taking off your shoes? What's the idea of taking off your shoes? In Moshe Rabbeinu, you see, anytime you're in the presence of God, you take off your shoes. The base of Mikdash, you take off your shoes. God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're having a vision, take off your shoes. What does it mean to take off your shoes? So the first level, it means like this. Do you know there are 4 levels of existence in the world. In the physical world, there are 4 levels of existence. It starts with the inanimate, the earth. The level above earth is plant life. Plant life grows on the earth. The level above plant life is the animal kingdom. Animals eat vegetation. And the level above animals is human beings. Okay? A human being there are others who count it as 5. There's human beings in general, and then there's the Jewish people. So it's either 4 or 5, no matter, listen, you were there Friday night. How many of you were at a Friday night meal? Were you at a Shabbos meal? Were you Shabbos Friday night? You heard them make Kiddush? Did you protest? Any of you protested Kiddush? Nobody protested? Nobody protested?
Yeah, they drink the grape juice.
They drank the grape juice, not the wine. That's what can we get something a little stronger? No, that's not what I'm talking about. None of you are all, what do you call it? Every one of you, myself included, we are supremists. Is that the word? We just declared at Kiddush, you were at Kiddush, and somebody just got up and said, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, who's chosen us from all the nations. You didn't protest? That's tacit approval, right? We have been chosen from all. It's not very politically correct. You're right. I'm not a politician. Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, who chose us from among all the nations. That means you're an elitist. We were chosen. You're right. We were. What can I do? I can't rewrite the history books. We were chosen. God said we're chosen. And then you were at Havdalah? You were at Havdalah? You didn't protest at Havdalah? They'll never cut it on your campus, gentlemen, right? Asher, what do you call it? He distinguished between us and the other nations, right? Hamavdu ben Kodesh l'chol, ben Or l'choshech, ben Yisrael la'amim, between the Jewish people and the other nations. Right? We know that we're different. Of course we're different. No Jew would ever buy retail. We know we're different, right? We would, there's no question about it. Only a Jew gets off of a plane and says, can I get that uneaten kosher meal? I never ate that. Can I take that with me? When you get off a plane, listen, we're Jewish. We're proud of it. What should I do? Leave it for the stewardesses? Give me the meal. I paid enough money. We're different. We know we're different. Somebody once said, Rav Weinbach Zatzal said, you could try to get into with the society as much as you want. You could change your Moses, but you can't change your noses, right? They'll find us. One way or another, they're going to find us, So, it's always the Jew who has tried to assimilate, and he's working in some office, and then one day the boss comes in, and he says, he orders up from the restaurant some Danishes and coffee, and there's always, everybody's helping themselves to Danish, and always a Jewish guy who's changed his name to Murphy. Right? And he's trying to hide his Judaism, but when they bring in the Danish, the Jewish guy goes, hey, this is free? There's the Jew. There you are. Just put a big J on your forehead. There he is. Can I take 2? Can I take 1 home for my kid? There's the Jew. So listen, what can we do? Okay, let's call it 4. Now, what happens is like this. When man is on top of the pyramid, your shoes are the lowest part of your body, and the shoes are made out of animal hide. So if you're wearing shoes, what it shows is that you dominate, you dominate layer 3, which is the animal world. You're standing on the animal world, and therefore you dominate layer 2 and layer 1. When you're in the presence of God, there's supposed to be total submission. When you're in the presence of God, you don't dominate anybody. In the presence of God, you are totally submissive to God. Therefore, we take off our shoes when we're in the base of Mikdash. We take off our shoes, Moshe Rabbeinu at the mountain. You take off your shoes in the presence of God, symbolically showing that we are totally submissive to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to God, and we dominate nobody. That's the first idea of taking off your shoes. Obviously, the practical idea is when you're walking around the desert with sheep, and you're coming up to a holy place, so chances are your shoes are going to have something on it which is disrespect. That's certainly the plain meaning. Take off your shoes got all sorts of gook on it. So you got to take off your shoes. But the deeper idea is that the shoes dominate, shows that you're dominating the rest of creation. In the presence of God, I don't dominate anything. In the presence of God, I am totally submissive and dependent on God. Therefore, the shoes come off. That's idea number one. Idea number two is extremely important for us. Look what God says to Moshe Rabbeinu. He says, take off your shoes because the place you're standing on is holy soil.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that the reason why we don't wear leather on Yom Kippur? It's because we're
No, we don't wear leather. It's a good question. We don't wear leather. It might be contained. The basic reason why we don't wear leather on Yom Kippur is because leather shows comfort. And it's one of the ways there are 5 areas of deprivation of comfort on Yom Kippur. One is not allowed to eat or drink. One is not allowed to cohabit. One is not allowed to wear leather shoes. One is not allowed to put, one is not allowed to bathe. One is not allowed to anoint himself, right? Because it has to do with deprivation of comfort. If we deprive ourselves of comfort, so then we're in a more of a focused mode on Yom Kippur. But it could be that that's contained in there. There's also the idea of submission. Why we don't take our shoes off now when we go into shuls nowadays, I don't know. But in the Beis Hamikdash, they did the Kohanim in the Beis Hamikdash served completely barefoot. There's also an idea that when you're barefoot, you feel somehow, without your shoes. You're gonna go home, put on a 3-piece suit, gold cufflinks, the whole get-up, but don't wear shoes. Right? You're gonna, it's just something doesn't feel right. It just doesn't feel. It's very humbling to walk around without shoes. Is very humbling. And the idea is, why we don't wear it in the shuls now, I really don't know why nowadays, why we don't daven in shuls, why we don't take off our socks. But it's almost instinctive that when you go into, you see the Muslims do that. The Muslims take off their shoes before they go into a mosque. Whether they find their shoes when they come out is a different question, I don't know, but they take off their shoes. So there's another idea. God says to Moshe Rabbeinu, you're on holy soil. So the commentaries point out something very remarkable here. Every one of us has certain life circumstances. Sometimes a person feels, I need to be there. If I was in an ideal situation, I could be on holy soil. If I had a different life situation, I'd be on holy soil. I'd be able to grow as a Jew if my situation was better. If I was in another city where there are more Jews, if I wasn't in a job where there's so many people around me, everything interferes with me. If I had an ideal circumstance, I could be really holy. If I lived in a yeshiva and only spoke Aramaic my whole life, I'd be really holy, right? It's a mistake. Wherever you are right now is holy soil. You're on holy soil right now because you're a holy person. I don't like the word holy. Sounds a little too messianic, a little too what do you call it? You're a person who's got ruchnius. You've got spirituality. You've got the ability to grow. Wherever you are, you've got the ability to grow. Person feels like, well, my life circumstances don't. That's not true. Grow within your life circumstances. You're on holy soil right now. You don't need to be in a shul. You don't need to be it's ideal, and we certainly try to create ideal circumstances for us and try to do anything to surround ourselves with something that will promote our growth. If a person has an opportunity to spend time on a beach or spend time at a beis medrash, you're better off at a beis medrash. That certainly promotes a service of a Kodesh Baruch Hu. You're better off. The beach carries certain challenges besides the sand, and therefore, it's certainly not the ideal situation. But if a person is trapped on a beach, I don't know how, but somehow you got trapped on a beach, you were kidnapped and left on a beach, okay, that becomes the holy soil. And therefore a person, whatever their life circumstances are, and wherever they started, and a person sometimes feel, well, I started too late, it's too late for me to change. Who said it's too late to change? A person may have been God, that means God gave him circumstances that brought him to only discover Judaism later in life. You're on holy soil right now. Grow within your circumstances. That's what Kodesh Baruch Hu telling Moshe Rabbeinu. Okay, tomorrow we'll continue with this, and hopefully we'll start Parshas Vayera.